In 2006, a group of Wall Street bankers sat down with Ford Motor Company and made one condition non-negotiable. Before they'd hand over a single dollar, Ford had to put up collateral. Not just its factories, not just its patents. They wanted the blue oval. The logo, the name stamped on every Ford built for over 100 years, was about to become collateral on a bank loan. And Ford said yes, because the alternative was going bankrupt, like the two American car companies that didn't survive what came next. This is the story of a company that almost died 3 times. And refused to, every single time. Henry Ford didn't start with a hit. He started with 2 failures. In 1899, backed by 12 investors, he launched the Detroit Automobile Company. It built maybe 20 cars in 2 years. Too slow, too expensive, too unreliable. By 1901, investors pulled the plug. Ford tried again. The Henry Ford Company, 1901. This time the fight wasn't about the cars, it was about Ford himself. His investors wanted race cars and quick profit. Ford wanted to build something bigger. He walked away. The company he left behind got a new name, Cadillac. 2 companies, 2 failures. Most people would have stopped there. In 1903, with a group of new investors and $28,000 in cash, Henry Ford tried a 3rd time. He called it the Ford Motor Company. It would take failure number 3 to make it. The Model T launched in 1908 at $825, roughly a year and a half's wages for the average American worker. A car was still a rich man's toy. Then, in 1913, Ford's engineers did something that would rewrite the entire century: the moving assembly line. Before it, building one Model T chassis took 12 hours. After it, 90 minutes. And Ford didn't pocket the savings. He passed them straight to the price tag. By 1914, the Model T cost $575. By 1925, just $260. The car that only the wealthy could afford was now something a factory worker could buy with a few months of pay. A factory worker who, thanks to Ford's own $5 a day wage, was earning more than double the industry standard. Ford didn't just build a car. He built the customer who could buy it. 3 decades later, Ford's assembly line went to war. At the Willow Run plant in Michigan, Ford re-engineered the entire idea of aircraft manufacturing. Bombers weren't supposed to be mass-produced, they were hand-built, one at a time, by aerospace specialists. Ford ran them down a car assembly line instead. At peak production, Willow Run turned out a fully finished B-24 Liberator bomber every 63 minutes. By the end of the war, 8,685 bombers. Almost half of every B-24 built in America. Working that line was a young machinist named Rosie Monroe. In 1944, she was pulled aside to appear in a promotional film for war bonds and became the real face behind a poster you've almost certainly seen. We can do it. Rosie the Riveter wasn't just a slogan on a wall. She built bombers at Willow Run. The company that mass-produced the car that put America on wheels had just mass-produced the planes that helped win a world war. Fast forward to April 1964. Ford unveils a car nobody asked for by name, but everybody wanted: the Mustang. Long hood, short deck, a price under $2,500, sporty enough to feel like a dream car, cheap enough to actually buy. It didn't just sell. It created a category. Pony car wasn't a segment before the Mustang. After it, every manufacturer in Detroit scrambled to build their own. Ford hadn't just built a car. Again, it had built a market. In the early 60s, Henry Ford II tried to buy Ferrari outright. The deal collapsed at the last minute. Enzo Ferrari walked away from the table. Ford II didn't just get angry. He got specific. He ordered his engineers to build a car with one job: beat Ferrari at its own game, on its own ground, the 24 hours of Le Mans. The result was the GT40. It took 3 attempts. But in 1966, Ford cars crossed the finish line in 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place, a clean sweep, on French soil, against the team that had won Le Mans 6 years running. There's a darker footnote to that finish. Driver Ken Miles had led almost the entire race and was on pace to win outright. Ford's team asked him to slow down so all 3 cars could cross the line together for a staged photo finish. Miles did, and lost the win on a technicality, because the car behind him had started slightly further back and was ruled to have covered more distance. He never got his Le Mans victory. Weeks later, testing another Ford prototype, he was killed in a crash. Ferrari would never win Le Mans outright again. Ford went on to win it 4 years straight, 1966 through 1969. It wasn't just a race. It was a message, and it cost more than anyone likes to admit. Not every bet paid off. In 1957, Ford launched an entirely new brand, the Edsel. 10 years of planning. Nearly $250 million spent before a single customer walked into a showroom. Ford projected 200,000 sales in year one. It sold roughly 63,000. The car launched right as the country slid into recession, arrived with mechanical problems straight off the line, and carried a name and a grille the public simply didn't warm to. By 1959, the Edsel was dead. Total losses, by some estimates, north of $350 million. It became the industry's go-to shorthand for flop. But Ford survived it. And survival, it turns out, was the one skill this company had in spades. Which brings us back to 2006. Ford was losing money on nearly every car it built, $17 billion in a single year. Toyota and Honda were eating its market share alive. A new CEO, Alan Mulally, arrived from Boeing with one blunt diagnosis: Ford was out of time. His plan, One Ford, meant merging a company that had operated as separate fiefdoms in every region into a single, unified business. To fund the turnaround before it was too late, Ford needed cash. A lot of it. A syndicate of banks agreed to lend $23.5 billion. Their price: nearly everything Ford owned as collateral. Factories, patents, and the blue oval trademark itself, the first time in the company's history it had pledged its own name to survive. Then came 2008. The financial crisis hit Detroit hardest of all three automakers. General Motors and Chrysler both took federal bailout money and still went through bankruptcy. Ford took nothing from the government because it had already mortgaged itself 2 years earlier and had the cash on hand to ride it out. It became Ford's most powerful ad campaign, without spending a dollar on it, the one that didn't take a bailout. In May 2012, Ford's credit rating climbed back to investment grade. Under the terms of that 2006 loan, that was the trigger. Ford got its factories back, its patents back, and the blue oval, free and clear. Detroit Automobile Company, Henry Ford Company. 2 failures. The Model T, the $5 day, the assembly line that rewired the 20th century. Willow Run, the Mustang, the GT40 at Le Mans, the Edsel, and a decade that started with a bank owning Ford's own name and ended with Ford owning it outright again. 120 years, and the pattern never changed. Bet everything, survive anyway. If you want the next one, the story of the car that beat Ferrari or the plant that outbuilt the aerospace industry, subscribe and tell us in the comments which chapter we should go deeper on.